As a coloured pencil artist, I get to choose from a huge array of different surfaces. However, I tend to stick to just a couple that I love and that suit me and my techniques. And Clairefontaine Pastelmat is my all-time favourite surface, and I want to share a few facts about it and some tips to help you get the best out of this absolutely amazing surface. One of the biggest challenges for a coloured pencil artist is getting light colours over dark. You want to add a highlight on a dark area and your white pencil comes out all grey and smeary and doesn't give that gorgeous bright white you want. Pastelmat allows you to get that elusive light over dark seamlessly. Pastelmat comes in a few different colours, in 3 different forms: pad, sheet and board. And there is also a thinner option on a roll, but I'm not sure whether that's available everywhere yet. So I'm going to talk about the pads first, and the different pads that you can buy and the colours that are included in them. So there are 6 pads in total. This one's number 6. Pad number 1, the colours that you get in there are buttercup, maize, dark grey and light grey. And you get 3 sheets of each. So there are 12 sheets. They're also, this one doesn't have any anymore because I've used all of them. They also have a piece of glassine on between each sheet to protect the surface. The surface is very delicate on Pastelmat. It can get damaged quite easily, so you have to be quite careful. The sizes of the pads, you get the smaller size, which is this one. This is 24 by 30, and then you get a larger one, which is, I think it's 11 by 14, something like that, 11 by 15. The weight of this pad is 360 grams or 170 pounds, and basically this is what a sheet looks like. You've got this shiny board on the back. It feels very, very smooth, and then on the surface you've got the Pastelmat surface, which is like a lovely velvety surface. I think this is buttercup. This colour's buttercup. So pad number 2 has 3 sheets of white, 3 sheets of sienna, 3 sheets of brown and 3 sheets of anthracite. Although I think anthracite is now called charcoal. Pad number 3 is all white, so you get 12 sheets of white. Pad number 4 has 3 sheets of, I think it's called wine, 3 sheets of dark blue, 3 sheets of light blue and 3 sheets of sand. Pad number 5 has 3 sheets of dark green, 3 of light green, 3 of dark blue and 3 of white. Pad number 6 is the 12 sheets of anthracite, which is now called charcoal. It's a very, very dark grey. Again, really, really nice surface to work on. So when you are deciding as to whether you want to use the board or the sheet, it's completely up to you. It's totally up to you and your preference. The board, you can see here, is thick. It's really, really rigid. I quite like it. It means that you can sit it on a canvas if you want. It's not going to get damaged, as in creased or anything like that. It's a really nice, sturdy board. I tend to find the surface a little bit more consistent. However, again, consistency is one of those things with Pastelmat. It's the most fantastic surface, but because of how it's created, sometimes you get quite a soft piece, a smoothish piece. Sometimes you get one that's a little bit grittier. And I think it is down to the batches. Personally, I just suck that up. And I love Pastelmat, and I work with it, and I just put up with it. I think it's the most fantastic surface. So this is board, this is a sheet. So this is the same white. Both feel sort of like very similar. This is the sheet, so this has got the shiny backing, and then it's much more, you can see it's much more flimsy. You can kind of wriggle it around, but you have exactly the same beautiful surface on here as you do with the board. This is the sheet again. This little piece that I did. Again, shiny backing. The back of the board sometimes is very difficult to work out what's the surface, because the back of the board is a matte surface, and sometimes if you get a very, very smooth piece of Pastelmat board, both sides feel the same. What Clairefontaine used to do was they used to put a stamp on the back, so you could tell which was the right side. So it's totally and utterly up to you as to whether you want to use the board or the paper. The Pastelmat paper, the weight is 360 grams. The Pastelmat board is the 360 gram Pastelmat sheet. So this sheet attached to a 1.8mm board. And that's the only difference, is just attached to a board on the back. One of the things about Pastelmat is it has a few little quirks, and something that can be quite disconcerting. I don't know whether you can see that here. It has a bit of a bow. I'm not forcing that bow on there. It has a little bit of a bow, and that can upset quite a few people. It's an expensive product, and I think people think, well, it should be perfect. It should sit straight. You can see how that's sort of bowing up there. Personally, it doesn't bother me. I just hold mine down with tape, or I hold it down with magnets, and it works. It works fine. I don't know absolutely what causes the bow, but speaking to my framer, he suspects that it's due to a moisture difference. So a moisture difference with the actual surface and the board that it's sprayed onto. And that's what causes the bow. But it's nothing to be worried about. You don't need to send it back. You just tape it down, or you use magnets. I use magnets, and it's absolutely fine. I used to feel that the board version was much smoother than the paper, but I've just recently had some batches of paper sent through, and they've been super smooth as well. So I don't think the board makes a difference to the smoothness. I did at one point, but I don't now. And I think it's just purely down to the actual batch of the surface and how it's sprayed onto the backing board. There can be inconsistencies in the surface due to the way it's made. I don't know whether you can see these little sort of white spots. They're almost like little talc spots. Can you see there? I've just sort of I've scraped it off with my nail. You can get bigger ones of those. You can also get, particularly on the white, because you can't see it, you can get scratches that only appear when you start drawing over them, which is very frustrating. There are ways to kind of tackle that. But there are some little inconsistencies, little bits that you think, there are some areas, particularly on the white again, where you get a little tiny round circle where you can't actually draw anything. There's no surface there. And again, there are ways to tackle that. So what's all the fuss about? Well, for me, Pastelmat, I think, is a favourite surface for coloured pencils, or one of the favourite surfaces for coloured pencils. Due to its unique surface, it has a beautiful, I kind of describe it as like, when you get a really old favourite tea towel and it's lovely and soft and fabricy. That's what this surface is like. When you get a lovely soft piece, that is what this surface is like. It feels fabricy, it feels soft, it's absolutely beautiful. It allows for multiple layers. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to have layers all over. Doesn't mean you have to put 30, 40, 50 layers in everywhere. But where you need to get the multiple layers, so where you need to get lots and lots of layers in, like this dark area in here, up here, where maybe there's a really complicated area. I'll bring my lovely wolf in here, where there's a lot of sort of complicated bits where you've got to get the texture right and everything like that. That's where it's really, really useful to be able to have those multiple layers that you can put in, because you can just build that beautiful depth in your piece. I think much easier than using a smoother paper. It allows for light over dark. I mean, that really is the holy grail, isn't it, in the coloured pencil work? It allows you to get those light colours over dark. So this is a piece that I did. It allows for the light over dark here, where we can get those sort of light eyelashes in there on this very, very dark shadow. It means that we can get things like light in over the top of the fur here, so you've got a dark background, you get light in there. It means that we can get these gorgeous areas in the ears here where we need to get those sort of lighter fluffy bits in. It just means, I think it's a much simpler way of drawing. You start with your base layers and you just keep on going through it. It's also incredibly forgiving. If you make a mistake, you just incorporate it. You just build the layers in. Mistakes, I don't really make mistakes, because I just build it into the piece that I'm drawing. And it's just the most fantastic surface. You can see in here we've got some lovely little highlighty bits in there. If I make a mistake, I can just layer into it. I can just add to the layers, and I can keep adding. It's very rare that I get to a point where I can't add any more pencil onto Pastelmat. But then there are times where you don't want to add a lot of layers. There are times where you want to just have some really soft, lovely, gentle layers of pencil with something like this. You know, this maybe has got 3, maybe 4 layers in here. There's places where there's maybe just 1 layer in here. And that's when, you know, again, it really comes into its own. You know, where you just want sort of like a couple of layers in, you know, maybe 2 or 3 layers in here. And then you might have multiple layers up at this top here. So it's a very, very forgiving paper. It's a very versatile surface. It's a surface that allows you to do all sorts of different things and also to create incredible depth and details. The best way to cut your Pastelmat is using a steel safety ruler and some kind of Stanley knife, sharp, heavy duty knife. I would not use a craft knife unless you are cutting the sheet version. If you're cutting the board, you need a really good strong knife to cut the board. I have a cutting mat and I have my sizes marked out on the cutting mat with a Sharpie, and then I just line it up, put my ruler on, and I just cut it.